It's the rain, isn't it? I know it. Okay. Do I have everything here? I don't know. Seems like there's more. Do I have more down there? Yeah, grab me some up there. Yeah, you can come right up the front. Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, my name is Arlene, and I am powerless over drugs and alcohol and codependency, and today I choose recovery. Woo, hello. You can see how this is going to go already, right? So around here at Choose Recovery, what we do is we have lessons around the 12 steps, and we have testimonies of the change of people's lives through working the 12 steps through the power of Jesus. And we have some special things that we do, and Askit Basket is one of those special things that we do. After a block of talking about steps and testimonies, we give you all the opportunity to ask questions about what we had just talked about for the last few weeks. And so if you're new, don't worry, it'll come back around. If you're new here, it might be a little confusing, but just hang in there. It'll all make sense in a hot minute, right? So we're just glad that you're here. So we're at the place where we've just finished here talking about steps 4 and 5, and they're on the screen. I think Rochelle and Pete just did a great job of reading them, but let's read them together with some scriptures that can go along with it tonight. Go. Step 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. For troubles surround me, too many to count. My sins pile up so high I can't see my way out. They outnumber the hairs on my head. I have lost all courage. Psalm 40:12. Can you at least say yeah to that? Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, let's keep going. I am drowning in the flood of my sins. They are a burden too heavy to bear. Psalm 38:4. Yeah, right? Absolutely. And let's do step 5. Step 5, admitted to God, to myself, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. When I kept silent, my bones wasted away through my groaning all day long. Psalm 32:3. Whoever conceals their sins does not prosper, but the one who confesses and renounces them finds mercy. Proverbs 28:13. Can you say yeah to that? Yeah. And that's the point. That's the point of doing these steps, is to be able to get some of this stuff. Steps 1, 2, and 3, when we work the first 3 steps, it gets us closer to God. You know, we're separated from God, and we need to get closer to God. We need to get to know God a little bit better and to begin to rely on Him. Steps 4 and 5 and 6 and 7, they're all about getting to know ourselves a little better. You know, by the end of my addiction, I don't know about you, but I would be telling you some reasons I was doing things or whatever, but I was just talking. You know what I'm saying? I was just talking. Whether or not it was even true or not, I could hardly even tell anymore. And so 4, 5, 6, and 7 is really all about kind of getting the truth about ourselves in order. And then when we go on to 8 and 9, it's about getting right with other people. So we talk about getting right with God, getting right with ourselves, and getting right with other people. And so we're at steps 4 and 5. And those steps made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. That means writing down a 4th step on actual paper and like actually writing it down. And step 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs, where we actually share that with God, admit it to ourselves, and then tell another person. Those 2 steps sometimes can be really difficult. And by the kinds of questions that we got tonight, you know, considering we've got a rain going on out there, and, you know, you guys are the brave ones who have braved the rain, and you're the brave few, there's amazing questions in here. So obviously, we have some questions around steps 4 and 5, and so I have asked the experts. Wah, 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 somebody just said. To come and help to answer. And so we're not experts, but you know what we are experts on is our own experience, strength, and hope. together we walk this recovery path. So there are many things we have in common with one another, and some people have been down that path and actually have insight and wisdom for us. And so I think that these three people have insight and wisdom for us tonight, and so I thought I'd get my friends to introduce themselves, their area of recovery, their sobriety dates, or their recovery dates if they have one, and then we'll get on with questions. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Mike, and I'm a Christian recovering from drugs and alcohol, and my sobriety date is May 25th of 2017, and I choose recovery.
Hi, Mike. Woo!
Hello, my name is Sandra, and I'm in recovery from childhood sexual abuse, physical, emotional, and spiritual abuse, codependency, and love and relationships, and I've been in recovery for about 12 years now.
Sandra.
I'm John. I'm a grateful Christian recovering from drugs and alcohol. My sobriety date is 8/2/15.
John. Woo! Awesome. Well, the microphone made its way on back here, so okay. So let me think. Where do we want to start? There were some questions, some really good questions about what steps 4 and 5 actually mean. Like, what is a searching and fearless moral inventory? So what goes actually on that list? And on step 5, what exactly does that mean? What are the exact nature of our wrongs? And how do we admit those to God and to ourselves? So I think those are really good questions, right? Like, what exactly do those steps mean? And here, you can look at them, so be helpful. He'll be like, what? But just here, just so you can, yeah. You can pass.
I mean, I can answer this. The first time I did a 4-step, I really didn't know what I was really into, and thank God they had columns, and when I started getting into it, I started the searching and fearless, and I was very fearful, so I was talking to my sponsor a lot while I was doing this. The searching part came out by filling out all the columns and realizing how selfish I was, realizing my part of, why I did things, and basically it all was about fear, and I've heard that so many times before I even did it. It's all about fear, kid. It's all about fear, kid. But I didn't really get it until I started writing all this down. So, and as far as admitting to God and to ourselves and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs, well, this last time coming in, I resented myself so bad I blamed everything really on me, and I thought that I was nobody else's issues but mine, and I realized how I hurt other people, and because of my shame and guilt and selfishness and dishonesty, how I hurt other people. So I started, realizing it's my sinful nature that is acting and doing all these things. But it wasn't. I had to write all this stuff down and confess them with another person to actually see that part in myself. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Makes sense. Do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, in my experience, because of my abuse, writing it down just really helped me see what my responsibility or my response to the abuse was, and so what was done to me and the consequences of that, but also what I had done and how that affected other people. In my mind, I just felt so ashamed from what had been done to me and from what I had done. But once I started writing it down, it's like those giants start getting smaller, because now I can all of a sudden see them in a piece of paper and see that my God was so much greater than what was on that paper. And confessing it was just really freeing, because I always felt like I was the only person who struggled with those things, or that felt shame. And my sponsor was just really graceful, and she just had been through probably worse than I had. And so that was just, gave me a lot of hope that I wasn't alone, and that if she could recover, I could recover. So that's the power of writing it down and confessing.
Thanks, Sandra. You know, there's a lot of questions. You were saying about your sponsor. You mentioned your sponsor too, Mike. My sponsor was, huge role. And we have like a whole bunch of questions about sponsors. Things like, what role does your sponsor play in your fourth and fifth step? And is it best to do your fourth and fifth step with a sponsor, or should you do it with someone else? And what if they think badly of me when they hear the things that I say? And a lot of things about fear, about sharing this stuff on our fourth step with another person. And so can you talk a little bit, John, talk a little bit about the role of a sponsor in these steps, particularly steps 4 and 5, and what to do with that, anxiety and fear, of being judged?
Well, the first thing is, how could you take yourself through something that you've never been through properly? That's what I've been trying to do all my life, trying to run things my way. A sponsor should be somebody that's done the steps before. They'll help you guide you through them. And the importance of a sponsor is, like it's said around here a lot, if you're your own sponsor, then you need to fire him because you got an idiot for a sponsor. So, you can't do something that you don't know. That's one. And for me, it was hard doing the fourth step. I did the 1, 2, 3 shuffle for a long time because of my trust issues. I didn't trust nobody. And I really had to find somebody outside the circle that didn't know me, and that wasn't going to judge me. And I found out later on that, I wasn't as unique as I thought I was. That there was people with bigger problems and worse problems and been through more than what I've been through, and the little stuff that I thought that was big wasn't that big.
Thank you, John. Is that all you have to say about that?
You need a little more?
We had one person who I love it. I love it when our denial can come out even through writing like a thing. And if this is you, please don't run screaming from the room. But we had a great card. It's like, you ever have a conversation with somebody and say, oh, let's talk about something deep and meaningful, and they go, how about them Mets, right? And so somebody handed in a card saying they really liked the music, and I'm really glad that you really like the music, but it just felt like kind of like the same thing, you know what I mean? It's like, how about that fourth and fifth step? Well, what about that music? Let's talk about that music at Choose Recovery tonight. We have a couple of other questions here. There's a theme. Can we skip these steps? Can we really skip these steps? Can we skip the fourth step? Can we skip the fifth step? Why are these steps important anyway? Oh, here he goes. Now he's going to take it on. There we go. There we go.
The fourth and fifth step is freeing. It's freeing of all that baggage that I was holding on to. And until you're free, you're not going to go nowhere because you'll always be stuck. You have to let go of all that stuff. And the only way to do that is to see all the stuff that you were doing and how insane it was and what your part was in it. And the fourth and fifth step are the most important steps of cleaning house and letting go of all that garbage.
To me, the best way to describe the fourth step is, a lot of people get scared, and I did when I first started. But it's simply writing facts. That's what my sponsor said. Just write the facts. Don't worry about the feelings. Don't worry about what happened. Let's just write them down. And that's what I did. I just wrote them down. And once you start confessing, it's like bringing it to the light. It was, to me, was like inviting my sponsor to go clean up my closet. So we just went in and kind of sorted everything out by pieces, and then started figuring out what belonged there and what didn't. What I had brought in and what other people brought into the closet. So it's just really very factual. It seems very scary, but it's just very factual. It's just things that happen in our lives. And as we go through it, we'll discover that other people went through this same stuff. So once we clean out that closet, then we can really see it for what it is. And again, it's those big giants. Like my abuser was one of my big giants, my parents. But in my head, or just simply talking about it with my friends, never really made sense. But when I wrote it down, I began to see patterns in my life. So I realized that every 2 years I had the same pattern. I started here and I ended here. And when I came to my sponsor, I said, I am tired of going around the mountain. I start here, I go around, and I end up in the same hole. Can you just help me go up? And she's like, what are you willing to do? I said, anything. And she said, good. And so that's what I've been doing. And I mean, believe me, I've gone up and gone down and gone up and gone down. But that's what the inventory, every time we take that inventory, we go deeper and deeper into why we do the things we do. Why do we start here? Why do we end up here? So if nothing changes, nothing changes. So the only thing I could change was my behavior so those patterns could change.
Thanks, Sandra. And kind of piggybacking on that, we have a couple of questions that are kind of similar about exactly how deep do we have to go on our inventory? In other words, do we have to tell everything in detail, or can we just go from like the beginning of our addiction, when that started? Do we have to go like beyond that? And so there's some questions about like how deep we need to go on this particular thing. So what saith ye, Michael?
This last time when I came in, I gripped my sponsor and said, I really need these steps. I really need these steps because I was so broken, and I knew these worked. I didn't know how much they were going to work. But when he said, start writing this stuff down, and thank God he did this kind of right away with me. We did a 3rd-step prayer as soon as I got out of rehab. And I started doing this. But even though I say this, there were some things I still didn't want to admit.
Right.
I just didn't
Right.
want to admit that I was
Right.
going to hold. And when we got to that day, that more stuff came out. So I guess I started off willing to go to anything, but I didn't really know how deep this was and how far back it went. So that's why it was important for me to do it with him in that park. And I did, because I just said, the heck with this. I got to let this go. And it was never even on paper what we discussed. I don't know if that makes any sense. And I got to say one thing. I've tried to do this in the past in a confession booth. I'm not saying that's not right for anybody. For me, I still lied. I did. It took another alcoholic and drug addict like me that I can admit that to. I did. I tried going there, and I ended up leaving going, man, I even lied to the priest. Oh, my God. You know what I mean? This is not right. But I want to say one thing. It wasn't until I was done with this step that I could connect in meetings, in my life, because I couldn't really look the world in the eye before I did these steps. Even when I went to meetings, I kind of was like this, and after that step, I felt free to able to actually go on with life now and deal as life comes at you. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. It makes total sense, Michael. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks. There's a couple of questions about, along that line, it's like, okay, so how complete do we make it? We had a few people who were seemed to be a little fearful about, well, how do I know that it is complete? I mean, I've written this stuff down. I tried to be as sincere as I can, but how do I know that it's complete? How do I know I've done it right? And I think that John probably has some insight to that. He just said, "Ha!"
Picking on me tonight, Ollie. All right. I think.
No more than usual, though.
I think, for me anyway, my 4th step, there was always something later on that came up. I couldn't remember totally everything, but I did do it as thorough as I could. what I remembered, and I went all the way back because my character defects and everything started way back when I was, I guess breathing. So I had to go way back. I had to dig down deep. I didn't want to leave no stone unturned because I've tried, like I said, doing the shuffle and just giving people bits and pieces of what maybe I thought they wanted to hear, and just to get people off my back, and it doesn't work that way because you're still hiding something. I didn't want to hide nothing. I wanted to be an open book for a change. And that was a scary thing for me because nobody knew me. They knew my name, but they didn't know my story. And today, I don't care who hears my story.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, John. That's a tweetable moment, by the way. John Estrema, it's like my character defects began with breathing. So I know somebody's going to put that out there. Yeah, please do. Yeah.
For me, I have done my step 3 times. The first time I dealt with the abuse, the second time was codependency, and the third time was love and relationships. So it's like peeling the onion. There's always a layer, and I'm still working on a lot of stuff. I've still struggled with all 3 of them. So it's work in progress. But yeah, God just keeps showing us stuff. So we're never done. This is a journey, not a destination, is what I've discovered.
That's so very true. I know it's true in my life. There's also a few questions here that are really interesting because I know people want to know specifically about specific things, going on in their own life, their own character defects, and what about this, and what about that, and what about this. And I think that's the whole point of having a 4th and 5th step, is having a place to put that down and having a sponsor to be able to go over those things with. We had a couple, and I just want to shout out to some of these questions just in case other people have thought these same things. What do you do when you have no contrition, when you're not sorry for the wrong you did? It's a good question, isn't it? And that's the sort of thing that you talk to your sponsor about, when they tell you to do your when they tell you how to do your 4th step. That's a good thing. It's a good discussion thing to talk to your sponsor about. How do you do your 4th step when the only thing on it is you? The only person you've damaged is you. And that's another good thing to talk to your sponsor about, because they'll help you, lead you to the sorts of things you can be thinking about that you may not even remember. And I know that happened for me. I was given a very long inventory of questions to ask, and it sparked all kinds of things in my mind that I never would have thought of before. Can I be having sex and still be a Christian single? It's a good question, and that's the kind of question that you go to your sponsor with and go, where does this go? On my inventory list, where what can we do? Can we talk about this? And so, those sorts of specific questions I think are real important to work out, because it's your sponsor, and I think everybody here would agree, it's your sponsor who's going to lead you down that road to recovery. Chances are in the same way that their sponsor led them. And the road is the same, but there's a lot of different ways to travel that road. And so to be able to find one person to be able to take you in that direction, I think is really important. One of the things that before I got a sponsor, my first 3 years of recovery, before I got a sponsor, I would just kind of ask people. I'd ask this person and that person and this person and that person. I'd take a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and I didn't really have a path. Does that make sense? But once I got a sponsor, they led me down the path, and it's been a great one. One last question, and then we're going to get the band back up here, have some time at the altar. But that's right, one last question, and anybody, it's up for grabs for anybody. And this is for the people who have done their steps already, maybe one time, and are finding out other issues that they might have, because we're not one and done, right? We're not one and done around here. We're always on the journey of recovery. If you do another 4th step, do you have to start at the beginning? How many times do you have to do a 4th step? How often should you redo your 4th step? If I'm doing a daily inventory, which is a 10th step, do I still need to do more 4th steps? So I think these are kind of good sorts of questions to address, and I thought maybe we could get Sandra to close with that. Since she's holding the mic, I'm not picking on her. She just has it.
Well, I think you have to do the steps every time your life gets unmanageable. That's just it. Once we're in that step one, there's an area of our lives that is unmanageable. That's when I started doing my steps again. So I did my steps on my abuse, and I kind of understood that. I did counseling. Then I realized, oh my God, I'm so codependent. And so I started working on that because my life was very unmanageable. After I got rid of the abuse, then I wanted to control everything around me, and that was awful. So my life was unmanageable in that area. And then I realized my relationships, even though now I wasn't as codependent because I was going to Al-Anon and I was doing all of this, okay, I have boundaries now. Then I realized, well, there are certain boundaries that I don't have, and that was my sexuality. And so then I had to go to love and relationships and get that straightened out. So again, we always have something that needs to be straightened, and your life will tell you, believe me, when there's an area that you are in denial about, that you don't want to deal with, that is unmanageable, that's what you need to do and work your step on that.
Absolutely.
Basically.
That's good. That's a good word. That's a good word to close on. Let's give these guys a hand for coming up. You know, it's not easy to do this. It's not easy to go up because they have no idea what we're going to say. But I think they did a great job. Let's give them a hand and say thank you. Thanks, guys. We can just move this whole. If we can just move all of these back, that's okay. Just move it back. Just everything. That's great. You know, as the band comes up, there was one question. And I wanted to address it as a closing question because it was a good question. And it was a question about what does God expect out of me from working these steps? When it comes to the fourth and fifth step, what does God want from me? And I really, that really kind of touched my heart. That question touched my heart because, you know, I want us to know deep in our hearts that when we're working these steps, what it is it's a gift from God. The steps are a gift from God as a pathway to get us out of, guys, can we get on the step 4 slide up there for a second? To get us out of, for troubles surround me, too many to count. My sins pile up so high I can't see my way out. They outnumber the hairs on my head. I've lost all courage. To get us out of that. And then can we turn to step 5 for a second? All the way in the bottom it says, but the one who confesses and renounces them finds mercy. And so God wants to give us mercy. He wants to give us grace. He wants to give us peace. He wants to show us the way out of the problems that have been piling up so high over our heads that we've lost hope. And so the answer to that question is, God doesn't want anything of you. He wants to give you something. He wants to give you mercy. He wants to give you grace. He wants to give you love. He wants to give you forgiveness. He wants to give you a new way of life. He wants to give you peace. He wants to give you comfort. He wants to give you strength. That's what God expects out of you. He expects you to open your heart to Him so that He can pour these things in, and He does it through the steps. And so if anybody is struggling with that or anything else, this altar is open as the band plays this song to be able to come and accept that gift that God is trying to give you today of recovery and to overcome those words of the devil that are saying that God wants something of you, that He's going to judge you if you don't do these things. Let me tell you, the judgment of ourselves is bad enough. Can you say yeah? Can you say yeah? The judgment of the people around us is bad enough, right? Absolutely. God doesn't want to judge. He wants to give you grace. So the altar is open to come and receive that. If you need prayer, just raise your hand. Somebody will come and pray with you.